Conservative leadership candidates have just 9 days to make it onto the final ballot. To succeed, they have to submit the required $300,000 in registration fees and 500 party members' signatures. Officially on the ballot so far, Leslyn Lewis, Jean Charest, and Pierre Poilievre. The list of candidates includes former Deputy Leader Leona Alleslev, Ontario MPP Roman Baber, Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, and BC MP Mark Dalton. Others may be added as the party reviews their applications. Ontario Conservative MP Scott Aitchison is one of the people vying to lead the party. He's in Toronto. Hi, Mr. Aitchison. Good to have you on our program.
Thank you for having me.
I want to start off on the policy proposal you're putting out today that happens to coincide with those new, really sky-high inflation numbers, and in particular, your proposal to end supply management to address inflation. If you take a little bit of a closer look at what's behind inflation, though, certainly gas is contributing to a really big degree to those price hikes. So how will ending supply management actually do what you say it's going to do, which is bring down people's overall bills?
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk about it, Vashi. There's reports that actually demonstrate that supply management costs Canadian families, particularly Canadian families with children, almost $600 a year in extra money at the grocery store. I think fundamentally it is a policy that actually hurts farmers and hurts consumers. I give the example of New Zealand, where they marketed last year $17 billion worth of dairy products around the world, and Canada only sold about $378 million worth. There's opportunity for Canadian farmers, and there's opportunity to reduce prices for Canadian families.
I think that's part of the equation for sure, but what supply management also does is help secure a domestic market. And what we have witnessed over the last 6 months to a year is a very high level of impediments to international supply writ large. So, could it possibly, what you're proposing, have the converse effect, right? Could it negatively impact our domestic supply, thereby driving prices overall up?
Well, I think we have some of the best dairy farmers in the world, world-class farmers producing world-class products. There's no reason why we can't market those to the world, and there's no reason why the Canadian government can't help those farmers access those markets as well. This will take some time. This is a 50-year-old policy that hasn't really worked. One of the reasons that the Trudeau government did it back in the 1970s was to protect the small family farm. Back then, there was over 100,000 dairy farmers in this country, and today there's less than 11,000. There's huge consolidation. Quotas cost millions of dollars. And so if we can help those farmers market to the world and actually improve their business, increase their market share, that's a great thing. And it provides some competition so that Canadian families pay less for basic foods and basic necessities at the grocery store.
Respectfully, Mr. Aitchison, though, that didn't necessarily address the substance of the question, which is around what happens to our domestic supply. I take your point that in theory it does good things and it does the right things, but given the supply environment right now internationally, is it the wrong time to pursue what you're talking about?
I actually think it's the right time to pursue it. As I say, it won't happen overnight. It will take some time to make the transition, but it's the right time to start the process so that we can not just make things cheaper for Canadians to eat, but also so we can provide opportunities for these farmers. I think it's defeatist to think that if we open our markets and we open opportunities for our farmers to market their products around the world, that somehow they can't survive. If New Zealand farmers can survive in a global market and sell $17 billion worth of dairy products around the world, I know Canadian farmers can do that and more.
Can I ask you a little bit about the politics of the proposal? Because I remember covering the leadership race maybe a few races ago when supply management was almost like a wedge issue between two of the top candidates. And I'm wondering, with your position on supply management combined with your position on Bill 21, with, regardless of the debate around it, appears to be, according to polling in Quebec, very popular there. Are you kind of giving up on Quebec strategically?
No, I'm not doing anything strategic about this. All I'm doing is saying I want to focus on positive policies that actually help Canadians and help Canadian business to compete around the world. This is about affordability. You mentioned it earlier about inflation. The cost of everyday living in this country is going up. 6.7% is the inflation number today. That's crazy. Canadian families can't afford that, on top of things like carbon taxes and massive oversupply of government debt. We need to rein spending in. We need to get the cost of living under control. This is just a really very practical, sensible, small C conservative policy that actually is good for farmers and good for Canadian families. It's about affordability for me, and so I'm interested in just smart policy. I'm interested in talking to Canadians about ideas that actually improve their lives, and I'm not interested in playing political games.
You talk about reining in spending, and I want to touch on that and see what you do about that, because I looked on your website and you kind of have a headline that says balanced and sustainable budget. But you've also talked about maintaining the childcare deals, for example, with provinces, that a government under you would commit to spending 2% of GDP on defense. Both of those items come with really big price tags. So how would you balance the budget? Where would you rein in spending? And if you could, please be specific.
Well, there's no shortage of waste in a $400 billion budget. I think that what we need to do is we need to make sure that any money that we are investing is an investment, that we are actually investing in growing our economy, actually making investments in long-term economic growth. And so things like investments in infrastructure, investments in actually helping Canadian business export around the world, including dairy farmers, for example. Those are good, smart investments that actually expand our economy and expand opportunities for Canadians. So I'm not going to get into lots of very specifics about the actual budget right now. I just know that Canadians need their government to act fiscally in a fiscally responsible manner and make sure that we're growing the economy, not just borrowing and making future generations pay for it.
And with respect, Mr. Aitchison, I understand the problem that you're identifying, and I think a lot of Canadians understand it as well. They're worried about the amount of debt that they'll have to be paying off in future generations. But you and to an extent your party keep identifying the problem without saying exactly what you'd cut. I understand you're not in the middle of writing a budget, and you're not Prime Minister yet, you're not leader of the party yet. But if you're going to accuse the current government of overspending, what would you cut? So just signal to Canadians, like, what areas do you think don't deserve investment?
Well, I think there's no shortage of examples where this government has committed billions of dollars. I don't know if they've actually spent it or not, but we can talk about housing as an example. This government is long on photo opportunities, announcing billions of dollars, but pretty short on ribbon cuttings. I haven't seen enough units getting built in this country, and so I think you could actually commit less money on the housing file, but actually get something done. We need to incentivize the private sector. We need to work with other levels of government, and we actually need to get units built. There are Canadians suffering and struggling right now, and they can't live on photo ops alone. We need action on this file. And so I don't know where the money is going. I don't know exactly the billions and billions of dollars that the Trudeau government has promised on housing. I don't know where it's gone, because it's not actually resulting in any units being built. I just think that there are efficiencies to be found. Make sure that we're actually delivering on our promises and spending money as wisely as possible. There's lots of room for cutting waste in a budget that is as big as it is, that's not actually delivering any results.
Just very quickly, Mr. Aitchison, before I let you go, since we are talking about money, will you have the $300,000 raise in 9 days?
Well, pardon me, I didn't.
Sorry,
will I have a $300,000 raise, did you say?
Will you have it raised? Will you have to enter into the race? The entry fee for the...
Oh, I apologize. I thought you were asking if I was getting a $300,000 raise, and I'm like, you know something I don't know, Vashi.
I do not know that.
We will be there. We will be... Yes, we will have it raised. I got to say, the people of Parry Sound, Muskoka are amazing. They're so supportive of this effort. They're proud of the message that I'm sharing. They're proud of the tone of my campaign. I'm talking about just practical solutions to the problems that Canadians face every day, and that's what I'm focused on. So I appreciate their support, and they're going to get me over the finish line.
And you'll be, so you're saying for sure you'll be on that final candidate roster?
I will be on the ballot, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Aitchison.
Thanks very much, Vashi.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.